Let's get rich and give everybody nice sweaters and teach them how to dance. Let's get rich and build a house on a mountain, making everybody look like ants. Way up there, you and I, you and I. Okay, what's this meeting number? Okay, and that's all right because watercolor. Have either one of you done watercolor before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, so you have a little experience, so it's not too bad then.
Yeah.
But watercolor can be funny and frustrating, but it's beautiful. I love it. This light is like right in my face. If I can. Oop, that's not good for you guys. That works better. Can you see the bird okay? You can see the bird.
Yep.
What about now?
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's still good.
Okay, I'm gonna turn this big light off then. It's too much. I'll see if I need something, I'll grab something later. Maybe I can slide this over a bit. All right. Everybody got their bird drawn or traced okay?
Yep.
Awesome.
I just realized I don't have any paper towels. I will be right back.
Yeah, grab some paper towels. A blow dryer too, if you have one. If you don't worry about it. We may need to dry these. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Maybe I can get a small light. You know what? I think I have one over here.
I have to say, I didn't realize that it was, I don't know what I'm doing.
What's
I'm
wrong?
just crazy. I didn't realize we were going to paint along. So,
Yeah, you don't have to though.
well, I've just drawn my little bird on a piece of typing paper.
Okay.
They don't call it typing paper anymore.
Copy paper or whatever.
Yeah.
That's okay. Do you have any watercolor paper?
Oh, yes, I do.
Well, if you want, you've got a few minutes. Do you want to draw it on your watercolor paper or trace it, and then you can paint?
I have a few minutes.
Oh, yeah, we're not starting till 8.
Oh, that's right. I have 5 minutes. Okay, I'll be right
10
back.
minutes. So.
Thank you.
Yep. Come on, why aren't you working? Oh, because I plugged it. That's why. Okay. Hi, Sue. Is it Susan or Sue?
Sue is good. How are you?
Good, Sue. How are you?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Just still finishing getting set up. We have people yet to join, so.
No problem. My daughter's here too. She's
Awesome.
13, so she's giving.
Great. Awesome.
Can you say hi? She's
Hello,
being shy.
Joe. That's okay. Doesn't have to say hi. I totally get it. Hi, Joe. How's it going? Can you hear me? Oh, he's connecting his audio. So if you guys want to see each other, I don't know how you have yours set up right now. So what's going to be weird is I'm actually looking at you guys on my computer, but my phone over here is set up to so you can see me. And then I have a camera here so you can see my painting. So when I'm constantly looking at you though, so I'm not going to be looking this way. So it's going to be kind of weird, but I am talking to you. So, but it's just the way it is. Joe, can you hear me?
He's talking.
Yep, I know.
Yeah, he's got to turn his, let's see. There is a message. If you want to see each other in your right hand upper corner, I'm not sure if you're on your laptop, iPad or phone, but there's a thing, it looks like a bunch of little boxes that lets you see the gallery view, which if you click that, all of us will come up so you can see all the participants. I got a message Joe here. So there's also a chat at the bottom, so you can click that and you can type. Okay. Oops.
Jimmy, oh, I'm sorry. May
Looks
I
like-
have some paper towels? Oh, another Susan.
Hi.
Hello, hello, Susan.
You can call me Sue.
Oh, hello, Sue.
Are you Susan or Sue?
Call me anything you want. You in here. Thank you, sweetheart. That should be enough. Oh, and I've got more here. Okay, getting ready.
Got a couple more minutes and then we will start to get started.
Ooh. Oh, yes. I have.
Make it today because they're not feeling well. So it's actually, I think it'll be actually a little bit better if we have a smaller class. Otherwise, we could be on here a while. All right, who do we got? Joe's still figuring out. Kristen, can you, oh, you did mute your mic. You can unmute it right now. We are not ready to start yet. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's fine. I'll have you guys mute. Actually, I can control your mics too. I can just mute everybody. Joe, did you figure out your volume? Probably not. All right, he'll have to try to figure that out. I'm gonna wait just a couple more minutes because I know I don't see Glenn on yet. And there's a couple people that are supposed to be coming, so.
Then I can get back.
I know my one friend Amy was supposed
yeah.
to come, and she said she got home too late from work tonight, so she's going to try and do it a different day, she thinks.
Oh, that's fine. I'm actually recording it. We're all oh, that's the other thing I'm gonna tell you. You are being recorded, so anything you say will be forever on here. But I'm recording it so people who wanted to come but just can't at the last minute can go ahead and do it later. So my light is not awesome here. I'm just gonna turn that off for now. See if we can work on it this way. Maybe I can move this down. There we go. That might work. Okay. If you guys can't see me painting, just tell me and I will flip one of these lights on. It's just right now they're kind of in my face. So it makes it hard. All right. Well, I'll give it till 8:05 and then we're going to start. So if you want to get a drink or a snack or anything like that, go ahead. We got a few minutes.
Jimmy, bring me a glass of wine. No, that's not.
Oh, I got my wine.
Who's
Right.
got wine?
I got my wine.
Oh.
Oh,
Wine.
yeah. Gotta have some wine or tea or something, or water.
Can I have a glass of wine?
can't do coffee anymore. I'd be up all night.
My manservant will.
Oh, there you go. Joe, are you figuring out your phone still? He is. I wonder.
My bird looks angry.
Your bird looks angry.
Yeah, my bird looks a little angry.
Hey, maybe
think
it's. Is
I
it the
put too
beak?
dark- No, I did something above the eye.
Oh, that's okay.
I gave it an angry eyebrow.
That's funny.
I'm gonna tone that down here on my sketch.
Oh,
There. Now he's not angry.
yeah, there you go.
Cute
You know
little
what,
angry.
I was telling them anyway. Have you watercolored before?
No, not really.
Okay, so don't worry about it. A lot of times too, your first one, it's going to look great, but it's probably not going to come out the way you want. So just
No.
let that notion go.
That's exactly why I'm not using anything fancy here. Cheap paper,
Yeah.
cheap paint, just giving it a try.
That's exactly it. And that's why I do these, because I teach, and I'll often get people who come in and they're like, oh, I want to do colored pencil, or I want to do watercolor. And they will invest a lot of money in some really expensive things, and they sit down and they do 1 or 2 classes and they're like, I really don't like it. It's just not for me. And then we explore other things, then they find maybe they want colored pencil or acrylic or graphite. So I tell people all the time, like, I have stuff, come try it first with me, try it out, and then invest if you want to, because it's not cheap to invest in all these art supplies to find out you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So
we've tried enough different things that we've learned that lesson. So
yeah, me too. Why can't Joe? Can you hear me now? I can't hear you.
Me?
I can't hear you, but you can chat, you can message.
I'm here.
So
Are we supposed to talk?
no, I'm talking to Joe. All right, well, we're gonna get started. If anybody else shows up, I will just pop them in here. Okay, I know Joe has watercolored. I've taken classes with him. Kristen, have you done watercolor?
I've tried.
Okay. How far have you gotten?
I've practiced a few times.
Okay, so you have
A tree, a barn.
okay, great. Do you have an idea a little bit about technique then? Like a wet and dry, things like that?
Not really. It's been a long time since I've
Okay,
made the attempt.
No problem. We're going to actually review all that tonight.
Okay.
Oh, hang on. I got to let somebody in.
Yeah.
you just need to puff out the chest.
Janelle, you have a little bit. Sue, you have a little bit. Sue, you haven't. And you and your daughter hasn't either, right?
Just playing around.
Just playing around. Okay. Okay, so now we've got connecting audio. Joe's a pro, so he'll probably, if he could talk, he would jump in and give you guys some techniques. He's smiling. But good thing we can't hear you, Joe. You might be correcting me. Hello. Who just jumped on? I can't see you. I'm sorry. Who do we got here? Whoops. I lost it. I don't know why I can't. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Oh,
All right, everyone, let's get started. So I'm going to ask that, I'm going to mute you guys, okay, your mics, just so we don't get a lot of background noise. If you have a question, you can unmute yourself and just ask. Does everybody know where their mics are?
no.
You see your microphone. So somewhere,
I see it.
Okay, so if you click that, it'll just put a red line through it, and that means you're muted. If you unclick it, I can hear you. Unfortunately, I can't hear Joe. Something's up with the audio. Joe, did you check your volume? Yeah, I can't hear him. So you can check your volume. When you logged on, it asked you if you wanted to use whatever device's audio. You probably should have clicked that. So you would have said like either your computer or your iPad or your phone. So you want to use that audio. And then what you want to do is you want to go into the controls and make sure the volume's completely up. That's so your output. We can't hear you. You can hear us, but we can't hear you. So it has something to do with your output. All right, so we're gonna get started. So everybody mute, I think we all are. And I'm gonna, like I said, just unmute and say, hey, I have no idea what you're talking about, lady. Slow down. So hopefully everybody's got their tools. If you don't have what was on my list, don't worry about it. Use what you have. These are just recommendations. So I have my flat brush, which is, I use a bigger one, and that's fine. You guys probably have something that's smaller, which is fine. We're only gonna use this to wet the background anyway. A round brush, these are my favorite. I have round brushes in every size because I use these almost exclusively. So if you continue to watercolor, you're probably going to want to eventually invest in some nice brushes. It really does make a difference. I know tonight you're just using what you have, and that's fine. But you will see a dramatic change in your actual painting, the end result, with better paints and brushes and paper. All three of those really matter in watercolor. So I've got my round brushes, and then we have a small one, typically like a 0 or a 1. They have very few hairs on them, and we're gonna use this for detail. That's gonna be the last brush we use. Okay, we have our wine or our drink, because that's super important. However, don't put it near your water bucket. Keep it separate, otherwise your brush will go into it. That's happened a lot. We have our water bucket, whatever you have, cup, bowl, whatever you want. Some people like to have 2 water buckets. Mine is nice and big, so I don't need to worry about changing my water all the time. Some people like to have 1 glass that's clean water. Some people like to have a glass they kind of keep dirty, where they kind of clean their brushes, and then they have the clean cup where they use that water for wet and things like that. Doesn't matter if you don't have that, just it's a preference. We have our watercolor paper with our bird drawn. And this is, I think I mentioned in my email, this is Arches. I love Arches watercolor paper. I actually use Arches for all my drawings too, not just watercolor. I use the hot press. I think I told you guys to get cold press. Cold press is easier to use when you're beginning. It has a better absorption, and it doesn't stain as quickly as hot press does. But I have hot press because I use it for everything. I use it for colored pencil, my graphite, my watercolor. So my watercolor may look my painting might look slightly different than yours when we're all done, just because it's a different style of paper. Hot press is a lot smoother than the cold press. It has very little tooth, and that's why I like it for pencils, because I can get nice renderings on it. We have paper towels. Please have paper towels. You're gonna need these. I just keep them close. I have some that I have next to me that are just folded over like that. They're just folded so I can blot. I gotta go over here. So I can blot my brush and stuff on them. I have them sitting next to my paint. And then we have our paints. So I asked you guys, we're only gonna work with 3 colors tonight. So we're gonna work with a red or permanent rose, a yellow or transparent yellow, and a Winsor blue or any blue you have, it doesn't matter. So those 3 colors we're gonna work with. You can get any color under the rainbow with those 3 colors just by mixing them in different ratios. So they're really, it's a really nice, it's color theory, so it's a really nice thing to understand and know. And it goes way back to kindergarten when we learned yellow and blue make green, blue and red make purple. So all of that's going to come back tonight. So all those things we learned, I always say everything you learned in kindergarten is all you ever really need to know. Because you need to know your colors, you need to know to play nice with people. That's about it. And to share. So all these colors here we just did with our three main colors. So does anybody have scrap paper that you can just do a couple little techniques with? I know I didn't tell you to get any But if you happen to have some, grab some. I don't even care if it's not watercolor paper. It could be copy paper. I don't care. So we're just going to do a couple really quick techniques before we jump into the painting. Just to kind of get a feel, because you guys are all beginners. So just to get, except for Joe, just to get a feel of what we're doing so that you can understand, like the biggest thing with watercolor is knowing your water ratios. I still struggle with this to this day. How much water do I want in my brush? How much water do I want on my paper? What's going to happen if this goes into here? So because there's so much movement in watercolor, it can get rather frustrating when you don't know. And that's all part of the learning curve. So I got my little sheet here, and for some reason my words are backwards and I can't fix it. Oh, maybe they're not now. Okay, earlier they were backwards. Okay, so if everybody has some scrap paper, let's just take one of our brushes. If you have a round brush, grab a round brush. And we're just let's just start with some color mixing. Let's just try to, the colors we're gonna use tonight are, we're not gonna really use green unless you want to in your background, but we're gonna use grays, browns. We can pop some blues and reds in here if we wanna brighten this up. This is very neutral, this painting, so if you wanna change things up, we can. That's the other thing. Just because I'm painting a certain color or a certain way, if you want to add something to yours, please do that. And the more unique you can make yours, the better. So if you want, instead of blue here, you want a purple bird, make him purple. I have no problem with that. And actually, this isn't, I painted this about a year ago, so I'm probably going to come up with a whole new color tonight. It won't look the same. Every time I paint these little brush babies, they always come out different. So let's just play around with some color mixing, because I find that that's the hardest thing for people is making brown and making gray. Those are the two things people really, really struggle with. So hopefully everybody's got their 3 paints. So how I start to make brown, the easiest way for me to tell you how to make brown with these 3 paints, I always start with red and yellow and get a nice deep orange. And then I slowly add my blue to that orange to get the tone or the shade of brown I want. So where's my transparent yellow? It's probably dirty. Okay, so my yellow's over here. So I'm just gonna grab some of my yellow. It's dirty, so I gotta clean it up a little bit. I'm just gonna plop some on my, right there. Okay, I'm gonna clean my brush and I'm gonna grab some of my permanent rose or my red. And I'm gonna mix these together and try to, oh, that was dirty too, sorry. I'm a dirty painter. Let me clean that. I'm gonna mix these together and start to get an orange. So kind of like a rust color almost. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slowly add some blues to it. And I'm gonna flip the light on here so you guys can see a little bit better. Hopefully this will brighten it up. Okay, so I've got this kind of orangey, kind of brown color starting. And then I'm gonna dip into my blue and slowly I'm gonna add. Now you don't wanna just grab a whole bunch of blue on your brush because it will just go really dark. So I'm just gonna touch my blue a little bit and slowly add blue to my orangey color. See, I actually added too much blue. It went a little purple. So now, because it's purple, I want to use the complement of purple, which is yellow, to bring it back. So I'll grab some more yellow. And you kind of play around with these color combinations slowly. Just touch the tip of your brush, right? And you get the brown shade that you like. So this is actually kind of pretty. It's leaning on the purple side, which I like. It's definitely brown. I know on the computer it might look a little different to you guys, but trust me, it's brown on my end. But if I want, I can deepen it. I can add just a touch of blue. Now I know if I add a lot of blue, it's gonna go purple. So if I add a touch, it did go kind of purple. So I'm gonna add, I just gotta throw some red back in here to get it. My red was not good the first time I used it. And then I'll touch the yellow. So, and you just kind of play with these three combinations till you start to get a brown that you like. And it will always vary, right? So sometimes it might lean towards purple brown, sometimes it might be more of a blue brown or red brown, and that's fine. It just depends on what you want, what your end goal is. How is everybody doing with the mixing? You can take your mics off and tell me if you're struggling. Joe, you have to type. I can't hear you. So if you really want to see your brown, you can either, do you see the chat, Joe? Do you see the chat button? If you click that button, a chat will come up and you can type to me. So to see your color, you can take your paper towel or a scrap piece of paper and just dab it. And if you look, you can see kind of what the color looks like. So if I've got my paper here, my scrap paper, I can also just run it across here. And I can see it's leaning on the purple side. But like I said, I'm okay with that. So if I want it more brown, I can grab some yellow, add that to my mix. And I'll show you right next to it. See how that changed that? Look how brown that is now. So I've got kind of a purple color, a purple brown, and then a more yellow brown, just by adding a touch of yellow. So that's how we get brown. And I always start with the red and yellow. I find it easier to start with those two combinations and add blue than to try to mix all three at one time, or to try to do purple and then add. But you may find that it's easier. Did it unmute you guys? No. It's weird. I don't. Okay, there we go.
There,
So
I'm
how are you guys doing with the mixing?
Mine is really green. I had a really, my blue must be very intense.
Yeah, so other paint colors too, brands are gonna run very, very different. Like in my Brush Baby kit, I use a brand called Van Gogh, and I do like it, but those colors, I have to almost approach it a different way because they're so different than the Winsor Newton. So you will see that. How did the rest of you guys do?
Good.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so we're all good. So I'm gonna leave you unmuted just for a few minutes while we work through the color theory here, because that way if you need to respond back. So that's how you get brown, okay? And you can get 100 gazillion shades of different brown that way. I gotta find my paper towels. Hang on one second. So purple's easy, red and blue. So we can mix a purple. I love to put purple in my paintings. I also use it in my colored pencil. I use purple under my browns a lot and under my blacks. It's a great color. So purple is easy. It's blue and then add red or your permanent rose. And you can get lots of shades of purple. You can get very deep blue purple. You can get a very red purple, depending on what color you put more of into your mix. So, purple's pretty simple. And then orange. If I'm going too fast, guys, just tell me to slow down. Orange is yellow and red. And again, you can get lots of different hues with those two colors. You can get a nice red orange or a more yellow orange.
color's not popping like your color looks nice. Mine's got a little pop.
Let me know when you guys are caught up with that, and I'm going to jump to gray because gray's another tough one.
Okay. How do you make
Any questions?
The first blue and red that I used to make purple made a yucky, yucky purple.
Were your colors dirty? Did you have other paint colors in them before you started?
No, but I used the wrong red, and I don't know what red I used.
Okay, yeah, different reds will definitely make,
Cool red and warm blue, or warm red and cool blue, or whatever.
maybe you got like a brown purple. Was it kind of
Yeah,
brown? Yeah, probably because you're mixing the cool and the warm. That's
yeah,
possible.
I think
So
so.
they're just kind of on like different spectrums.
I got a
Um,
nice purple now.
Okay, good. Anybody else have questions? Good.
You know,
All right.
so I feel bad for destroying it.
Ready? Okay, I'm going to move to gray. So since I've already got my purple here mixed, that's a great base for gray because I like purples. I tend to lean towards the purple shades. So to make gray, I've already got red and blue. I need to add yellow. Now you're going to think, well, that's going to make brown, and it does. So we're going to look at this nice brown we've got. Then we can add blue, and that's going to make it grayed up.
How do we make gray?
You take your purple and you add yellow.
So see that? Look how that's nice and gray. And you can do, you can make like a purple gray. So if I want it more on the purple side, I would just grab a little more red and add that. You want to do it slow. Red is very strong, so are blue. So I want to add those slowly to my mixes. If I just go in and grab a whole bunch of red right away, it's going to make it red. It's going to just take it right to purple. So just by adding small, and when I say small touches, I'm literally taking the tip of my brush and I'm like touching the edge of the paint, just getting a little bit on the tip, and then I can add it to my mix. And you'll kind of get used to like how much you should stick your brush into the paint. Okay, I like that. I would be really happy with that.
So Nikki, my gray is more of a green. So what should I add to it to turn it more of a gray?
Try a touch of purple.
Okay.
I'm sorry, red. Try red.
Red. Okay.
Yep. Where that takes you, and then if it goes too brown, add depending on what brown. Like it depends. If it's a purple brown, add a little yellow.
Okay.
It's like a real like blue brown, add a touch of, well, yeah, you'd probably still add yellow. So try yellow if it goes too far.
Okay.
Right to red.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that for a brown? You want to add what to make it gray?
Which one?
For brown, you
Yeah.
want to add what to make it gray?
What do you have? Like, is it like a pretty red brown or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Try your blue. Try
Okay.
touch of blue. You may have to add a little bit more blue depending. So see where it's going and go ahead and keep adding just touches of it. I tell beginners just to add small amounts till you figure out like how this all kind of works
Whatever you
together.
want.
It can be very frustrating if you've got a color and then what happens a lot
That
is
works.
back and forth. Yeah, good. So you end up going back and forth a lot when people really
Mhm.
paint too much. They end up in a circle. They just go in a loop. So if you just go slow. All right. How'd everybody do with gray?
I got
Good?
a gray, yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, now let's just do a couple techniques and then we're going to jump into our bird. Okay. So I did put here on my paper the colors that make the different colors. So red and yellow, touch of blue makes brown. Blue and red, touch of yellow makes gray. Yellow, blue equals green. Blue, red, purple. Yellow, red equals orange. So I will try to keep this here throughout the painting process in case you have to refer back to it. Or if you can't see it, just yell out, what colors make that? So wet and wet. Wet and wet is probably one of the most difficult techniques. It was for me at least, but I love it. So that's how I get these really cool backgrounds. So they're really, really soft. I actually paint a lot wet and wet because it is so soft, and I love the effect that it makes when colors mingle and stuff. And especially for all these little critters I do, because they're kind of like baby animals and they remind me of nursery art. So I try to keep them really soft. So wet and wet, we're gonna take a very clean brush. You can use your flat brush or your round, it doesn't matter to me. We're gonna make a little box. We're gonna make a box of water, just water, clean water. So you don't want it sopping wet. So what I do is I get my water on my brush and I just touch it a little bit on my paper towel. I don't need it sopping. And then I'm just gonna lay it down in a square here on my hot press. Yours is gonna be cold press. Now I have to work a little faster on hot press because it dries faster than yours does. So if I get a little ahead, don't panic, just slow down and do your thing. It's just because my paper dries. How do I know it's wet? If you lift your paper and turn your head to the side, you'll see your paper glistens. That's how you know that you've got water in that area. If you see a dull part of your paper, that means it's dry. This matters. This matters later when we're doing our background and stuff because we don't necessarily want our bird wet. We just want the background of the bird wet. So we wouldn't put water on our bird just around it. So you'd want to pick up your paper and look. So I've got that nice little puddle. Take any color you want. It's not a puddle, it's just a wet square. Take any color. You could take one of the ones you mixed and just at the top, drop that paint in there and you'll see how it moves in the water and you can kind of bring it down. And what's really nice about this technique is that as it dries, it's going to dry with a really soft edge. So you can see that right here at the bottom. See how this is almost fading to nothing? Because there's still water here. The paint is still moving down in that water and there's only a little pigment. So the further it moves down, it gets lighter and lighter and lighter, which makes this beautiful, hang on guys. Okay, sorry. It gets this beautiful softness to it. Now look at the line up here where it was dry. That line is a hard line, which is fine. We use that a lot in painting techniques too. What this means is water was here, but not up here. So it didn't move. The paint didn't move. It's a hard line there because there's nowhere. Watercolor will move in water. It can't move on anything but water. So if I, like for example, if I just did a line here with no water next to it, see these two edges? Those are hard edges because it's not going to move around. There's no water underneath it. So that's a wet and wet. There's a variegated wet and wet that we're going to use for the background. So we're going to use the wet and wet on the bird. We're going to use the variegated, I put wash, it's actually wet and wet, technique for the background. This is, again, clear water, so you could just make a little square. Clear water, tip your head, make sure you've got your whole square covered, make sure it glistens. You don't want large puddles. If you get a large puddle, take your brush, dry it on your paper towel, and just set it next to where the puddle is, and the brush will suck up that water off of your paper, okay? So we get that, and now we're gonna drop in color in different spots. So I might want like this gray up here, right? Maybe over here, and I do the sky on the bird this way. And then I'm gonna throw in some orange over here. And I'm not messing, I'm just dropping these colors in. I'm letting them kind of play around with each other. They're gonna mingle, they're gonna go into each other. I'm gonna grab a little red. I'm gonna drop some red in here. And then what happens is, and my paper is different than yours, so you're gonna get a different effect. I actually have to turn mine a little bit to get it to play. But what's gonna happen is these colors are going to dry, they're gonna mix with each other and make new colors. And they're going to dry, and they're going to be very soft. And that's how we got, like if you look in my sky here, I've got yellows, greens, blues, some oranges. That's the technique I used in the background to get that. And that's what we're gonna do tonight. So that's a variegated wet and wet. Is everybody with me?
Yeah.
Dry on dry is, it's just that. Now there's different levels of dry on dry. You can get a very scratchy dry on dry. So basically that's dry paper, a dry brush. So you get color on your brush, but you're drying it and you're kind of, well, it's going to be smoother on mine because I'm using hot press, but it's like this back and forth. Let me see if I can get it better. Let me try some blue. So it's like this kind, no, of course not. It's a kind of scratchy. You guys might get it better than I do. It's a scratchy kind of look. It's great for textures. And it's also easier if I use like a different brush. Let me see. I can try. More like that. It's kind of, it's still too wet. But you're gonna get more of a scratchy look to it. Or you could do kind of what I was just doing. It's like a dry, it's like a semi-dry on dry. So it's basically your brush has, your paint itself is pretty wet and you put it on dry paper, just like what I did up here. And it doesn't move, it just stays put. It just creates that line. You can, a lot of times lettering is done that way. When people do lettering in watercolor. So they're taking their kind of moist brush on like some dry paper and they're you know, doing cursive and stuff. Now this last technique, I don't know what it's really technically called. I call it the pull. Joe, maybe you know, I don't know. But basically you take your paint. So I'll take blue here. I used to use this all the time in interior design to render fabric because I didn't want to paint the whole couch or something. So what I would do is you just put a line here and then you clean your brush and you pull the line down with some water. And you keep doing that till you get like a gradient going all the way down your page. So then I clean my brush again and I start at the next line and I keep pulling this color down till clear, till the paint is like, the water is completely clear. And it just creates this gradient of color. It's one of my favorite things to use. I don't know if it's like a wet, it's not a wet and wet though. I don't know what it's called. It's not a wash either. I don't know, maybe it is. Joe, is it a wash? No, I don't know what it's called. I call it the pull. We'll use that on the bird and on the branch, but it's a great technique. I use it a lot on faces to get like soft cheeks and stuff like that. So I'll have a lot of color up here on the cheek and then I pull it down along the face or along the neck. It does great for shadows. All right, so those are the things we're gonna use tonight. Any questions? Anybody have questions? Nope. Okay, we get to go to the fun part. We get to do our bird. Does anybody need a quick break? No, we're good? Okay, so let's see, can I put this like right there? Okay, so again, my paper's different. I'm gonna work a little faster than you probably will, so don't feel rushed. It's just that I'm working with a hot press, so it's a very different consistency. Okay. So let me see if I can get some more light on here. Better light. I'm going to move this over here and do it this way. There we go. Okay, so let me move this up. Okay, so first thing we're gonna do is that variegated wet and wet technique, okay? So we're gonna wet the whole part of our paper. You can wet the branch too because our background's gonna be fairly soft, but I would suggest going around the branch, but if some gets on the bird or the branch, do not panic. Okay, it's not a big deal. So the first thing we're gonna do is, try to get my light right. Okay, we are going to wet the background. So take your flat brush if you'd like, or your round, whatever you like using the most. clean it off because we were using it. Make sure it's clean. I always have a couple paper towels in my hand so I can dab. If sometimes you'll get a drop of paint on your painting, you want to dab it up quick with a paper towel, or if you just spill something. So I've got my paper towels, I got my clean brush, and I'm just touching the tip of my brush to my paper towel because I don't want my background sopping wet. And then let's just go in. Again, you're going to have to tip your head to see where it's wet and wet the whole thing. The whole, not the bird or the branch, just the background. So we're going around the bird, around the branch, but we're wetting the rest of the paper. So you want to get it wet enough that it stays wet for a little while because we want to work our colors in, but you don't want it sopping where you're getting puddles of color. And like I said, if you get some water on your bird or your branch, don't worry. Those are going to be darker anyway. It's not a big deal. So we're going to paint all the way around in just water. And then make sure you've got all your spots, because if you don't and you go to add color, and it hits a spot, it's going to create a hard edge. Again, not a big deal, but if that's not what you want, it's going to be frustrating. So I'm working my way, make sure you get all the spots around the bird. One of the things I always do is I forget little spots like in between the legs and stuff. So remember those spots, that's all part of the background.
Tell you in closing is that please get rid of this guy, and that you can do. Let's sign this.
There we go. Okay. Pick some colors you like. So do you want, I'm going to do just like the bird I sent you. I'm going to do a yellow, some blues, and I'm going to drop in a little bit of red here and there. So pick what you want and go ahead and drop those colors in. So, and don't fuss. You want to put them in and leave them alone. So get some on your brush. You can start in the corners and just drop some yellow. Drop some reds because those will mix and make that pretty orange. So just drop them around and kind of let them sit and let them do their thing. I gotta move this. The other thing you can do is pick up your paper and move it back and forth so they kind of mingle. So you can lift your paper and get these to move into each other without using your brush. The thing with watercolor is if you use your brush too much and it starts to dry, you're going to see a lot of brush strokes, and that's not really attractive for watercolor.
You and Chris should have dinner.
Oh, I know. We're waiting for you.
Okay.
I already ate
Oh, good.
little things, and
Okay.
I think Chris is going to eat something now.
All right.
You can use some of the colors you might have on your palette that you mixed.
I'm having fun.
Whatever you want to do. I'm going to throw some blue down in this corner. Over here. And over with my pink and let those mix. If you mix too much, if you start really messing with your colors, you're going to make what's called mud. Mud is just kind of an ugly brown. So you don't want to mix and play too much. You want to let them do their thing. Like I said, you can lift it and move the colors that way, but you don't want to make them blend. You don't want to manually do it necessarily. You want to let the watercolor have fun. If part of your paper is dry and you can wet it, it's like on its own, like mine's drying a little bit in between this branch, I can go ahead and wet it again because it's separate from the rest. If you go to wet something that's already wet, like you add water to it, you'll get paint that pushes back into it. I actually really like the effect. It's called a bloom. So you'll see that happen. I'll see if I can make it happen somewhere. But not everybody likes that, so. How's it going? How's everybody doing?
Good.
Okay.
Not sure.
Not sure? Yeah, I know. It's a little crazy. What's going on?
I'm not sure I'm doing the technique correctly.
That's okay. So you know what? Do what you think you're doing and let it dry. Because a lot of times it's just a matter of we need to stop messing around in it and let it do its thing. So you'll notice that, well, mine is pretty wet in some spots, and this is what I said you might want a blow dryer for, just so our class doesn't go too long. So really in watercolor, we'd want to let this dry, and then we could actually go back over it again with new layers of paint without disturbing what's underneath. We don't have the luxury of that time. So I can take my blow dryer and just kind of dry this so that the background gets a little dry. If it's going on your bird and stuff, like I said, let it go. Don't panic. It's okay. It's kind of pretty when the colors kind of mix like that, unless you've got a real like problem that you need to clean up. But other than that, just let it move. So there, I've got this really kind of, and the other thing too to remember with watercolor, when it dries, it's not as vibrant as when you first put it down. So if you've got a very, very light color down, when it dries, it's going to be even lighter. So you do want, like up in my corner here, that's pretty light. I like it though. I want more dark over here and lighter over here. So I'm okay with it. But if all my background were this shade, I'd probably have to do it a second time because it would dry so light. You wouldn't really see it. So I'm going to grab my blow dryer. I'm going to put my mic on mute so you guys don't have to hear how obnoxious it is. And I'm going to dry this. The other thing too, when you use your blow dryer, use it up high to start. If you have it really close to your painting and you do have a puddle, that the air is going to push that puddle all over your painting. It's going to push paint everywhere. So hold it up high and dry it that way. Oops, can I not mute myself?
Jimmy,
Yeah,
can I have clean water, please?
yeah.
Thank you.
Empty one there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, looks pretty. Mine looks like an Easter egg. Very spring. If your painting is a little crumpled, like from the water, just pick it up and just bend it a little bit. It'll help get some of the wrinkles out. It depends on the weight you're using. Like if you're using a 140 pound, they tend to buckle. If you're using 300 pound, it's the weight of the paper that tends to lay flatter, even though you put a lot of water on it. And I'll show you, actually I have a video on the Brush Baby, I think it's in the Brush Babies group, on how to flatten your watercolor painting when you're all done. So it's nice and flat so you can frame it. So you guys can reference that video. Do it tomorrow. You want to make sure it's completely dry before you do it. It's a very simple process. You let it sit overnight and it'll be stiff as a board the next morning and it'll look really pretty. I want to switch quick. We're just going to set our painting aside. I want to show you something. If you still have your scrap, I just want to show you how you layer in watercolor. So now our scrap piece is nice and dry. So the beautiful thing about watercolor is it's transparent, right? These colors we can see through. So we can build colors and new colors on top and create these really nice in-depth paintings. And that's how faces and things are done. So we get the preliminary colors on and then we put a new layer on and we build these shadows and these highlights. So if I were to take my wet and wet square and look how nice and soft that transitioned. How beautiful is that? If I take that, now I know it's completely dry. You have to make sure your paper is completely dry before you do this. If you don't, the color underneath is going to move when you add new color or water to it, and it's going to create mud. It's not going to look good. So I know it's nice and dry. I can actually take a blue. I'll just grab a blue here, and I can go right over my orange that I painted earlier, and you still see the orange underneath, and I can create like a new depth to it, right? Then I can even add a little more blue to it. So you can have these layers in watercolor that just sit on top of each other and create these new colors and things on top. Let me see if I can get this up a little higher. But you do want to be careful that your painting is completely dry before you do that. Otherwise it will move. Same as over here. Look at this variegated wash. It's beautiful. A lot of times you can tell if your paper is dry by the touch. If it's still cold or cool, it's moist. It still has water in it. So I can go ahead and add, say I want to deepen up my pink here. I can add some pink to that because it's dry. So I can add another layer and it's not going to move the color that's underneath. So if I wanted to, I could let that dry completely and add blue on top, and I start to get a really nice dark color, like a shadow. So that's how you can create lots of variation in your paintings. So with that said, if your background is too light or you don't like it, you can go ahead and do it again as long as it's completely dry. Now you'll still see color through. So like in this corner, it's pretty light. If I wanted to, I could wet the whole thing again and drop more pinks and stuff in here, and it will deepen that color up without moving all this beautiful color I have underneath. I won't have to worry about that. I'm not going to do that because we're on a time crunch, but that's something you guys can do later if you decide to. How did everybody's background come out? Are we happy with them? Okay. Okay, I got you guys unmuted. Go ahead.
Mine's pretty dark.
Let me see. Can you hold it up? Let me see it.
Where am I here?
If it's dry. If it's not dry, don't do it. Oh, yours is beautiful.
Well, let me turn this light off
Gorgeous.
because I'm
Perfect. It looks great.
I did
Yeah,
it
no, I don't think it's too dark. I think it's really,
horizontally. I did it vertically.
that's okay. I think it looks really good.
Thank
What
you.
else? Who else do we have? Janelle, what about yours? Very soft. Oh, I love it. It looks really, really good. And you put some, you dropped some, it looks like you dropped some in and it had started to dry maybe?
Yeah, and I put a little more water on it because it was dry. The paper was a little too dry.
And that's okay. It's just a different way to do it. It just
And I
gives it gives it a different look. So there's no problem with it. It's just that you can tell that the paper started to dry.
Yeah.
Kristen, how about you?
Mine turned out really light.
Yeah, it happens when people are just starting. So what I would suggest, you can either leave it and just let it fade into the back, or you can go ahead later after we do the bird and stuff, tomorrow even. I would let it dry overnight. You could do the same process without hurting the bird, and you can add some color to it to deepen it if you want to. How'd you guys do, Sue?
My daughter has moved on to ice cream for the night.
Oh, that's fine.
So here's mine. I don't know if you can see the colors.
Oh, pretty.
Oh,
Yes.
I like that.
A lot of
Beautiful.
yellow.
It almost has a rainbow effect.
It's got a lot of different colors.
I like it. I like it. Okay, Joe, you probably did great. Oh, look how pretty. I love it. Okay, I'm sorry. I forgot your name down here in my left-hand corner. I apologize. Is it Kim? It's not Kim. Yeah, right down here. What was your name again? I'm sorry.
It would be me, Kim.
Kim. Okay, it was Kim. I'm sorry. Kim, how did yours turn out?
I'm doing my own thing here.
Okay, that's all right. I'd love to see it.
I don't know if I don't know exactly how to do that.
Just hold it up to your
Hold it
camera.
up to the camera.
Just put it in front of your face, and we'll see it. Oh, you're doing acrylic. That's right. I remember now. Yeah, we talked about that. Okay, awesome. It looks awesome. I forgot that I did have an acrylic painter on here, so I can't really, but you know what you're doing.
Sure I do.
Okay, so now we can start our lovely bird. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to wet the whole bird, okay? And now let's think about, before we wet it, let's think about the colors we want in the bird. I'm going to stick with my kind of blue. I'm probably going to add more purple to this bird, but I'm going to stick with the bluish brown colors because that's what we tend to see in this area, are these types of colored birds, very neutral. But if you want to go and do like a pink, I might even add some orange into this one. So I'm kind of thinking like, how do I want my bird to look? So have a little bit of a plan in your head. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix some colors here on my palette. I'm going to mix some brown. I'm going to go with the blue, but I'm also going to mix a little purple, and I'm going to drop some orange right under his beak here on the breast. So when I wet this, just like we did the background, I'm going to start to add those colors in. I don't need the dark blue right away because we can layer that on after it's dry. But I'm definitely going to start mixing in these browns, blues, and then drop some orange here. Okay, so that's kind of how I'm going to tackle the bird. So kind of plan it a little bit ahead of time. So I'm going to mix the colors that I want. So I'm going to go ahead and mix some orange, which is yellow and red. And I'm going to mix a couple, a little darker this time because I don't want the bird to just kind of fade off into nothing. The bird is our main event, so we want him to stand out a little bit more than the background. So I'm going to mix some nice, pretty orange. I'm going to keep it more of a rusty orange because, again, I do like the neutrals because of the area we live in. Got this really pretty orange. If I want it on the burnt side, like a burnt orange, I've got my orange. I can add just the smallest amount of blue just to move it up and really kind of make it like a deeper brown, an orangey brown. Okay. If you're running out of room on your palette, just clean your palette off and start new. So I've got my orange, I'll do it like that. I'm gonna mix some gray. So again, I'm gonna start with, I'm gonna go to purple. I'm gonna mix some red and some blue. I'm gonna get a pretty purple, and I'm gonna add a touch of yellow to it. Take your time, don't rush. We're right on schedule, so. No, my palette is stained from the orange that you gave me last class. You see that? So I can't get rid of it. I just stained it. So every time I do my color mixes, they're off a little bit. I'm used to it now, but it took a little while to get used to that tinge of orange underneath it. Let it sit on there too long. Okay, so I like that gray. It's got a purple gray to it. It's pretty. So now I can move on to, I'm going to mix a nice brown. So I'm going to go back to my red and my yellow. I'm going to get orange, and then I'm going to add my blue to get a nice darker brown. We're going to mix black last. That'll be for the eye and some of the branch. So I'll show you how to mix black at the end. It's basically gray, but with a lot more dark blue in it. You get like a really dark purple, and then we add the darker. Oh, that's ugly. Ugh. I don't know what I did there. Let's get some yellow in here. Ugh. Right. Okay, that's a kind of a cool brown. Yeah, I like that. And I am gonna throw in some purple. So I kind of get my little things mixed. You could mix as, you know, a lot of times what I do is I wet my spot first, and then I mix my colors, because by the time I'm done mixing, it's like, I call it like the temperature of the paper is just perfect. But I didn't do that today because I'm working on hot press, and hot press just dries so fast. It's like I need more time. Oh, I like that blue, or that gray better. So I'm gonna go back over here. Make this purple. All right, how's everybody doing with your mixes? What colors did we decide to do?
All of them.
All of them. And then if you want to lighten a color, the way you lighten in watercolor is by adding water to it. So if you get something on your palette and you feel like it's just too dark, you can move some of the paint that you mix to a new section on your palette and add water to it, and that will lighten the color you have. There's no way to lighten it. We don't have white in watercolor.
Nikki,
Yeah?
what 3 colors did you use? What blue, what red, what yellow? I
What?
guess I didn't pay attention.
For which one?
The blue.
For what? For gray, brown?
No. I mean, what ultramarine,
Colors.
cobalt, phthalo.
I was taught to use Perm Rose, Winsor Permanent Rose. I use transparent yellow and Winsor blue, red shade.
Ah, okay.
Colors that I go to all the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, but that said, you can use cadmium red, a stronger yellow, and a Winsor blue. You can use anything like that. It's just going to change slightly the hues. That's all.
Thank you.
Okay, so if we've got our colors mixed, we can go ahead and wet our bird. We're going to use clear water, so clean your brush and wet just the bird. Now you do want to be careful. You don't need to wet the beak. We're going to do that in a black. And the eye, don't wet the eye. Work around the eye. But wet everything else. Except the legs. You don't have to wet the legs either. Make sure all of it's wet. So you want to use your, tip your head and make sure your whole paper is wet.
Are we wetting like the things around the eye?
No, keep that. So see on my picture here, see how I've got the black part and that white part?
Mm-hmm.
Go around the white part because we want to keep that white part. We want that to be the paper color, the white of the paper. We don't want any paint on that. So if you don't put water in there, the paint won't go in there. If you accidentally wet it, just take your paper towel and blot the water out of the eye, dry it.
So we're gonna wet the bird, and then we're going to start to put, I'm just gonna let mine dry a tiny bit. I don't want it, if it's really wet and you go ahead and lay some color in, you'll see it move really, really quick, right? And that means it's pretty wet. So you may wanna back off a little bit. So I'll show you. Like if I take, I don't know if it'll work. If I take my purple here, I'm gonna touch just the tip of it on my brush or my paper towel just to get some of that water out. But if I touch this and see how fast that's moving, that's because my paper and my brush are really, really wet. Now, I don't mind that. I can play around with it. I can move it. So all I did is I touched it right where the beak and the front of the head come together. And it's kind of creating that purple area around the head. And I'm moving it down the back of the bird. If your paper isn't as wet as mine, you're gonna have to pull some of that paint out and around. So you'll have to direct it. You're gonna paint it around the head and then down the back and let it go. Okay? Then I'm gonna leave that there, and I'm gonna grab a little orange here that I mixed. And I don't want that quite as wet. So I'm gonna touch my brush here and get some of the moisture out of my brush. The other thing you can do is touch the barrel of the brush with your paper towel. Just like that, it gets some of the water out of the brush. I don't wanna dry the tip completely. I just wanna get some water out. And now I can drop some orange right here under the beak and down the breast. Now you see how that didn't move as much? That's because my paper is starting to dry. It's starting to dry in this area. So there isn't as, it's still moving, but there's not as much movement. So that's how you know all the different levels that your paper's wet, just how quickly and stuff the colors are moving. Now, if you get a line, see right here, I laid down that orange, but it's not really moving. And I don't want that line there on the inside of, see that like V it's making? So I clean my brush and I just dry it a little bit. And if I just touch right in here and use that pull technique very softly, that will break that line up and it will get it to move again and create that nice, soft line that I want, that softness. So it's that pull technique. So now I've got this, look at that. I've got this nice, like soft paint edge that's gonna dry really pretty. So I'm just gonna keep working like that. Now, all I'm doing, I'm gonna add some brown to the tip. So go by kind of what I did originally. So I'm gonna add some brown down here at the body and maybe some up here along the feather edge. So I can grab some brown. I can put that in. And as long as my paper is still wet, it's still gonna move and create these pretty colors. If my paper's starting to dry, I either want to wet, use the pull technique, or you can dry your whole painting and then apply water to it on top again once it's dry and continue to create your painting that way. I'm gonna come along the belly with some brown. Now the center of my belly here is much drier than the back part of my bird. So if I add that brown in there, I'm gonna have to use that pull technique again because it's not moving. So I can drop this in and then I can go and grab some clean water and I'll turn my paper this way. So I'm working this way and I'm just gonna touch this edge and it's starting to pull that color down into the body of my bird. I'm just very gentle. You don't need real hard strokes or anything in here. Now, your bird may look ugly, and that's okay. This is the first layer. We're going to refine it as we go, so don't worry about it. So I'm just getting my stuff to move. And I'm gonna put some brown on the back of my bird here. He's starting to dry, but I'm gonna see if I can get some brown in here along my purple. And again, I have to use that pull technique because it's starting to dry back here. So I'm just wetting the very edge of that paint line and pulling it into the water like that. And now I'm going to stop. I'm going to blow dry this and we're going to do this again. We're going to add another layer. I'm going to mute my phone, my microphone, so that you don't hear it. Okay, so I've dried it. Does anybody need a break? You guys ready for a break?
I'm fine.
You're good? Okay, I don't, if you need a break, just let me know and we can stop for a minute or two, grab water, whatever you need. So it's not completely dry, but it's good. How's it going? How did everybody do?
Pretty good.
Yeah? Hey, Kristen, you're laughing.
Only because I was muted, so I gave you a thumbs up sign.
So these techniques we're doing are actually quite challenging. So the fact that you guys are doing it and sticking around and hanging in there says a lot. So I want you to know that because they're not easy. They're not easy techniques.
Oh, damn it. Oh,
What happened?
never mind.
Need to get some more wine?
I think the problem was the wine.
Yeah. Right? No kidding.
No, I'm fine. No, I'm fine.
If everybody's caught up, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use that pull technique. I'm not going to wet my whole bird. What I want to do now is I want to start to kind of define right here. I want to put a little bit of this color in and define this area separate. Right now it's not separate from the body. I want that to lift. So I'm going to use that pull technique. I'm going to lay some blue down. I'm going to do it in small sections. If I lay blue all the way down this line, by the time I pull down, like I start here, I'm using water to pull it. By the time I get to here, it has dried and it's dried hard. I can't pull it and that will always be there. So I'll show you what I mean. So if I have this here and I take, whoop, this is important. A lot of new students want to just, what they'll do is they'll do something like this, right? Then they're going to start. They're going to clean their brush. They're going to dab it. And they start here and they start pulling it. They start pulling this down to soften that edge. And they work their way. And as they get further and further down, it's already starting to dry and it's not going to budge. And you're going to have a hard line. So no matter how much I pull at it, it's going to sit. It's probably going to make a liar out of me because, you know, that's what it does. Well, so better to work in sections. So see as I'm coming down how it's not, look how nice that diffused, but this is not. Because it's already starting to embed in the paper and dry. So you're not going to get a nice soft line there. You'll get a little bit of one, but not like that. So what you want to do instead is you want to start, just do like a small section like that. Clean your brush, pull that section down into your bird. Then do the section right next to it. So if you're doing a line, then you would do right next to it, like that. And then pull that section. So that way, none of it's drying and you're not getting any hard lines. Okay? So I'm gonna do that here. I'm gonna use blue and I'll show you what I'm kind of talking about. And I'm gonna use, my paint is a little stronger now. I'm using a thicker paint, less water, more paint color now. So if I start right here at the feather tip, I can outline that, clean my brush, and start pulling it down into this body. So and I'm going all the way to clear water down here. So then I can do the next part. So I'm gonna add some feather looks here. So I'm gonna do it more like that. Not enough paint. Like that. I'm gonna wet my brush and I'm gonna just pull this little section down. I'm gonna soften it. So I've got a hard edge up here on this edge, but not down here. If you don't want the hard edge on top, you can do both. You can pull on both sides. So then I can flip it and start to soften this edge a little bit. It already started to dry, so mine's not gonna work. Well, it softened it a little bit. And I'm just gonna work my way up towards I'm not gonna go, it's just this part. I'm just working my way from this point down. And as I come up, I'm gonna make this more of a gradient up into around the eye area. So I can pull another feather out here. Clean my brush. You can have two brushes in your hand too, if that's easier. You can have a clean brush in your hand and then have one that you're using the paint with. So you always have the clean water going. And that's typically how I would do it. I would have two brushes that I'm working with. Does that make sense for everybody? You guys understanding? All right. That looks really, really cute. There. So I got a little definition in my feathers. How's everybody doing?
Okay.
I like the smiles.
Okay.
So quiet. We're all so quiet. Anybody got a good joke? A good dad joke? My son would. If he were here, he'd have lots of them.
A termite walked into the bar,
There we go.
said, "Is the bartender here?"
Wait, oh.
Did you take a minute?
Yeah, it took me a minute.
About it.
It's cute. I'm going to go ahead and add some blue to the top of my beak and up right here. I have my purple down. I want to define right in here. So I'm gonna wet above the beak and around this eye, down the back a little bit, but that's it, because I'm not gonna put blue everywhere. I'm just gonna drop some in here, some nice dark color. So I'm going to go ahead and clean my brush and wet it. I'm going to wet right now. You notice because it's dry, none of my purple is moving. So that's awesome because that allows me to layer another color on top without making mud. So I'm going to bring this down the back a little bit, around the eye, up above the beak, and just there's a little bit around the eye underneath. So then I'm going to take a nice strong blue, less water, more paint at this point. I'm going to touch my paper towel with it just to get some of the excess water out. And all I'm going to do is drop it in here. And I'm going to let it move. I am going to bring it up around the head a little bit, just like that. But I don't want to bury my purple. I love the purple coming through. So I'm just going to add some underneath the eye here and around the head and let it fade. So I'm going to help it along by just tipping my paper. Ooh, that's really cool. It almost looks like feathers. But if I don't want to mess in here, so I'm not going to do too much. I'm just going to let it do its thing. So just like that, I'm going to let it sit. Now before it dries, I'm going to get another dab of blue, even stronger now. I didn't put my paintbrush into water at all. I just went and got blue right from the paint. And right here, while it's wet, I'm going to drop that blue in nice and dark and let that move. So it's really defining this forehead area. Very pretty. Just like that. I'm going to do the same thing on the breast with my orange. So now that this is all dry here, I can go ahead and wet underneath that breast, that beak. Nice clean water. Now, as soon as I touch that blue I put up there, it's going to run into my orange. And I'm okay with that. I don't mind. So I'm going to let that do its thing. I'm going to wet under this part here, wet down the body a little bit. And I'm going to drop that, a nice hue of orange, but it's going to be much darker than the first color of orange I put in. So more paint, less water. That's how we get brighter color, more intense, less water. All right, I got to mix some more because I kind of lost my color there. So I got lots of paint on there and I'm just going to touch right under the beak. Oh, it's really pretty. And I'm going to let that nice intense orange just kind of flow down the bird in the front. Now, if it's starting to stop, which it is, I'm going to do that pull technique. So I'm going to clean my brush, make sure it's clean. I don't want any paint in it. And I'm going to dab it on my paper towel. I don't want it sopping wet. And I'm just going to touch right in here, right along this edge, and let that pull that color down. Just like that. Perfect. Now I'm starting to see my bird come to life. I'm really starting to get a feel for the body, the structure. It's really starting to take form. I'm going to do the same at the back tail feathers. I'm going to do my nice intense brown back here. So I'm going to flip my bird around so it's comfortable to paint. I'm going to wet underneath this blue where this brown feather is. Clear water. I'm going to pull it around the underbody, the underbelly, and up into, but I don't want to touch the orange. I don't want to run that because I like where it is. I'm just going to run this up a little bit. I'm going to grab some nice brown, again, more paint than water this time, so I really want it thicker. And I'm going to drop that brown in there and bring it up around the body. Ugh, I screwed up my brown. I gotta make new brown. If your palette gets too messy, just clean it off with some paper towels. Start fresh. Now I'm going to come under here and I'm just going to go ahead and pull that brown in around and let it do its thing. I'm going to do that pull technique because it started to dry just a bit. So I'm just going to pull this right up into the bird, into the breast, the body. Then I can tip it and let it run. All right. There. I'm gonna leave the back kind of soft and leave it the way, I like the way it is right now. So I'm gonna leave it. How's everybody's bird coming along? What are you guys thinking? This is the only bad thing about not being in there with you is I can't come around and like help you guys.
Do you want my address?
It's the only downside to doing Zoom classes is I can't physically see what you're doing. But when they're dry, oh, it looks great, Janelle. Very nice. I love it. Looks really, really good. Is it dry?
There we go. I muted myself and couldn't unmute. Not completely dry, but it's getting there. Yeah, like.
If it's too pale, if you want it darker, I think what you have is really beautiful. If you want to go darker, let it dry completely, and you don't even have to do it tonight. A lot of times when I paint in sessions or for over days. So I'll leave it tonight and I'll come back to it. But you could definitely add more, like I did tonight. You can bring out those colors. You can add a lot more layers to it if you want to.
Right. I think I definitely need to make some contrast between my background and my bird too. There's some blurring colors there.
That's why I added like the blue around the head and the breast. It just pops the bird out. It kind of gives it. No, you don't have to go crazy, but it definitely brings some of the colors out. When you guys are ready, we're gonna mix black and we're gonna pop that eye and beak in, and you're gonna really see your bird come to life at that point. Joe, let me see yours. I haven't seen it. Oh, it's so pretty. I love it. Gorgeous. So this is the bird that we're kind of doing with the pull technique. This is when you do them wet and wet. So a second class that I'd like to do after you guys have kind of done this one, if you want to join me in another one, this is a wet and wet. So I wet the whole bird and I worked all the colors all at once and let them flow all by themselves. So you can see how it's very different effect. Look at the blooms you get and the mixing of colors. And then after I went through and put some dry brush strokes on for feathers. We're not going to do that tonight, but this is, if you like that wet and wet technique, that's definitely a way you can do it. You can wet the whole bird and just start dropping these colors in and let them do their thing, and then that's it. You got a bird. So as soon as everybody's ready, we're going to mix some black and we're going to do eyes. So just give me a thumbs up or something when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Ready as I'll ever be.
I think Sue needs a little more time, so we're going to wait just a minute. You're good, Sue? Okay.
Yes, I'm good.
Okay, so black is all three colors again, except we're going to lean very heavily on the blue. So, and black is, okay, so when you're mixing black and watercolor, first of all, that's the best way to get black is to mix your colors. To use black out of the tube, you definitely can, but it's a very flat black. People who've done watercolor for a long time, not me, but other real pure watercolorists, they'll see that and they know right away you used it from a tube. They can tell. It's incredible. So it's always good to mix your own black. If you have black in a tube, the next best thing is to use that, but then add a color to it. Add like red or blue, something to make it more alive, because it's just the manufactured blacks just are not pretty. So to get black, we're going to start again with our purple mixture. So I'm going to grab some, I've already got some purple here, so I'm just going to add to it. So I've got my purple. I'm going to make it a very, very dark, dark purple. There's a few ways to make black, and tonight we're just doing 3 colors, so I'm going to show you how to do it with 3 colors. So add blue to it and get it real dark as purple as you can. So now I'm starting to get this really nice dark purple here. Then you're going to add just small amounts of yellow, not a lot. It's just to take, you almost don't even need yellow, to be honest. If you were to, it just grays it up a little bit. The yellow helps gray it to a black color, but you could almost get black just using your red and your blue. So now I'm starting to lean towards a gray, a dark gray purple. And now I'm gonna grab some more of that blue, and I'm not using a lot of water with it. I'm doing it in small amounts, and I'm just really darkening this dark color. Now the thing to remember is with watercolor, you're never going to get it pitch black, right? That's the beauty of it. We're actually, you want to see those colors in your black. You still want to see the reds and the blues and the purples. So you're not going to get the black hole. So don't expect that. So you can test it on your paper towel. So you can drop it, and that's pretty good. It's leaning on the blue side. So if I wanted, I could add a touch of yellow to gray it up a little. And then I could see where I am. So let me see. If I had a touch of yellow, right there. Yeah, that's a pretty nice black. And what's gonna happen is we're gonna do the eye and the beak twice, okay? So we don't have to get it super dark because we're gonna put one layer on, it's gonna dry, and we're gonna put another layer on, and it will be pretty black. It'll be really, really nice. But what we're also gonna do is switch to our small brush. We're not gonna use the flat, and we're not gonna use the larger round. We're gonna switch to our itty bitty brush. So we're gonna mix that black. We're gonna get our itty bitty brush in there, swish it all around. And we're gonna pull our little bird over, and we're going to do the eye. There's a couple things to note. There's white around the eye that we wanna preserve, and we have a glint in the eye, a small little white, a small circle. We wanna keep that white because that creates that moisture effect. It makes it look semi-real, even though we're not doing a hyper-realistic painting. So I'm just gonna start my circle, and I'm gonna go slow because I don't want to make my circle too big. I don't want it all wonky. So I'm just kind of painting the perimeter of it like that. And then I'm going to paint around the little circle so I remember to preserve that. I don't want to paint over it. And then I'm just gonna paint inside. If you lose your white circle, it's okay. I can get it back for you. Don't worry about it. So now we got a cute little eyeball on our bird. We're gonna do the same thing with the beak, except on the beak, there's a little white circle, like an oval. It's kind of long. We also wanna preserve that to be the white of the paper. So we're gonna go around. The other thing you can do when you're using your small brush, you may want to get the color on, but just touch your paper towel to get some of that excess water out. It's a little easier to control then. And I'm going to go ahead and paint the top of the beak slowly and carefully. And I'm going to paint the bottom of the beak. And I'm going to go around this little oval because I want to, that's that part where they like, I think they breathe on it. It's their nose, right? It's where they breathe. A nostril. I know nothing about bird anatomy, so guessing. And then I'm going to paint that all black. And I'm going to let that sit or use my blow dryer because if I move this or hit it, it's going to push that black somewhere and it's not going to look good. So I'm going to grab my blow dryer and I'm going to dry it. Okay, so now I got a cute little A cute little bird with some eyes and a beak. The last thing I'm going to do with my black is just start to put his legs in. So I'm going to stick with my small brush. I'm going to get my black on there. I'm going to touch my paper towel, get some of the excess off, and just start to, I'm not going to paint these in black. I'm going to do underneath and around this foot down here. I'm going to clean my brush, grab a little bit more, and just softly, I don't want it real dark. I don't want his legs real black. That's not the main event. The main event is the bird. So they need to be subtle. So I'm wetting the feet and wetting around. It goes around the branch. And then I'm just dropping a little bit of color in there. Right underneath the body, creating a little bit of a shadow right on the leg. Oops, that's a lot of shadow. Let me lift. So if you want to lift some color out, like I dropped that in, I dry my brush completely. And if I just go, I start here and push back, I can lift some of that color out. So I'm going to put the other feet in. Comes up this way. Little toes. It's kind of like a bluish black that I'm using. It's not real strong. Oops, this one goes behind the branch, not in front of it. So again, I got too much color here. I dry my brush completely, push back into the color and lift it right out. There. How we doing? Good?
Good.
You guys getting tired yet?
No. But if I start to snore, just mute me.
Hey, Parker.
Hello.
Hi, do you got a good dad joke?
Yes. Hey guys, what do you call a number that can't keep still?
They're all muted. Go ahead. And
A Roman numeral.
Thank you.
Oh, I get it.
Okay, if we're all caught up, we're gonna start our branch, but let me know if you're still working on your bird.
I have a joke.
Oh.
Okay, good. Yes.
What did the janitor say when he jumped out of the closet?
I know this one, so I won't say. Go ahead. Anybody else?
What does the janitor say? I don't know.
Supplies!
We have a dad joke book, and that one's in there.
I can't remember most jokes, so that's.
I can't either, but my son does. He remembers a lot of them. So
My daughter.
Knock, knock.
there.
Knock, knock.
Who's
Who's
there?
there?
Interrupting cow.
I know this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good one.
Bad. No, don't.
I'll think of a bunch of them when I get off. I'll be like, oh yeah, that one.
But I'm bad at telling jokes, so I might screw it up.
That's okay.
Okay. Like, hang on.
That's what I have to
Okay,
do too.
what do people from Dubai or, oh shoot, hang on.
Oh my God, my poor little feet.
Don't worry about the feet too much. Just kind of make little scratches.
Did we
Okay, I got it.
yet?
Got it? All right.
What's different between the people from Dubai and the people from Abu Dhabi?
I don't know.
Ooh.
The people from Dubai don't like the Flintstones, but the people from Abu Dhabi do.
What?
Nice. Nice.
I didn't hear that.
I said, what's the difference between people from Dubai and the people from Abu Dhabi?
Yeah.
The people from Dubai don't like the Flintstones, but the people from Dubai, or from Abu Dhabi do. And I put it up the second time.
Yeah, right?
That's a tricky one.
That is good.
Oh, takes Lord help me. I just.
All right, I'm going to show you guys something quick. Let's see here. There's a couple ways to clean up your painting when we're all done. I don't want you to do it right now, though. I'd want you to do it tomorrow when your painting's completely dry. You've added all your layers, and you feel like you're done. That's the only time to really clean up your painting. So if you do it before that, you could run the risk of damaging the paper, and then it's really hard to get layers or anything on top of that, and you'll always see that blemish. So it's one of the last things you do. I'm going to show you guys on mine because I've done these 100 times. I'm probably going to just throw this up. So there's a couple ways. I have this brush. It's just a cheap old brush that I got from, like, I don't know, Michael's or something. And what I did is I cut it on an angle. Whoop. So it's if you feel it's like the bristles are soft, but because it's so close to the barrel of the paintbrush, it's hard. And it's like a scrubbing brush. So you can actually wet this. And again, you always want to be careful of your paper, especially on a 140 pound. It's very thin. It's not as thick as a 300 pounds, so you can damage the paper quickly. But like right here, if I want to get rid of this little brown area that kind of went down too far on my bird, I wet my brush and I'm just doing a back and forth motion. And then I take a clean paper towel and dab it. And you do that a couple times. You clean your brush again. You want to make sure you clean your brush in between each time, because otherwise you're just transferring more paint onto your painting. And then I just scrub it back and forth, and it eventually lifts that brown paint right off. So there, it cleaned up that very bottom part of the bird. So you can do little things like that. Now the white that's around the eye, see how mine is? I don't know if you guys can see. See how it's a little wonky? It's like, it's not smooth. It's got some sharp edges to it, especially at the top. I can take it'd be hard to use my scrub brush in such a small area, but I can take an X-Acto knife with a nice point, and I can just kind of round this out by scraping very, very lightly on top of that blue line. And it takes a little time, but I can scrape that blue right out of there and make this area right around the eye, round it right out, so it's not this sharp edge here. Well, you got to kind of get the right angle. Again, you will damage the paper, so make sure this is one of the last things you do. You're not going to put any more paint on this because you're not going to be able to. This is also a way that you can clean out that little white part of the eye. Say you lost it when you were painting. I can go back in with an X-Acto and just pick out some paint and bring that right back. Same with the beak. So. just by doing that, I was able to round out that white part a little bit. This is a perfectly acceptable thing to get the white back in your watercolor painting, rather than using a white paint. White paint is frowned upon. So there. So see how I was able to round that out? I got rid of that sharp point above the eye. So you can do little things, like if I wanted to put a line underneath here for the bottom of the beak, I could use my X-Acto and I can scratch a line right out. See that? I'm just using the very tip of it. And now I've got that line in there to show like a bottom part of the beak. So make sure your paper is dry and make sure it's the last thing you do. You don't want to do it. It's a great way to create highlights. You don't want to do it little hairs if you're creating or little feathers if you're creating something with small details. It's a great tool to use. You could also use a magic eraser, but we'll do that on another project that's bigger. So we're not going to do that on this little bird. So for all set, we're going to go ahead and do the branch. We're going to wet the branch. I'm going to use brown and blues in my branch. Those are the colors that I want. So I'm going to wet sections of my branch. I'm going to do it like I'm going to start here. I'm going to wet it with clear water and go this way a little bit. I'm going to go up this way a little bit and this way. And I'm going to drop some blue and purple in there underneath. I want my shadow underneath. Okay. I'm just doing it in spots. I'm not filling the whole thing. Right here where they come together, I want a nice dark blue in there. Now while it's wet, I can keep adding some color. So now I'm going to grab some brown and put some brown in there, and I'm going to let those kind of play together. So I'm going to add some brown here. They're going to mix and probably make a little bit of a purple color, and that's fine. So I'm just getting my base layer on. I want it soft. I want them to kind of play around, but I'm not worried about it being super perfect yet. So now I can do up into, my bird is still wet. I can do up into my bird. I'm going to take some blue. I'm going to line the bottom part of my branch here, creating a little bit of a shadow. And I'm going to put some brown on top, or black, apparently. I need to mix more brown. Okay. Yeah, that looks good. I'm using my round again. I do like to use my big round brush. You don't have to. You could use that little one if you want. It's a smaller object. Now I feel like I got too much brown right here, so I cleaned my brush. I've got it dry, and I'm just gonna go right back over it this way and lift some of that out. I didn't want it quite so dark right away. You can pull highlights out this way too. You can clean your brush real good, dry it off, and go right back in and lift that paint right out. Now, as I come up to the top of this branch, I want to fade it off. So I'm going to wet right up into my sky with clear water, and I'm going to let that kind of just fade off. So I'm not going to take my brown completely up to the edge of that. I'm just going to take it up to about there, and kind of let that sit there, and let it fade. It's like it's going off in the distance. Okay, and I'm going to do all my branches this way, slowly wetting each one, working around my feet, We can always go back and add black to those, so I'm not too worried about them. Some darker color underneath here. I'm going to put my blue underneath for that shadow and brown on top. Plants and branches are probably my favorite thing to do. I just love the colors in them. They're also natural, so they don't have to be perfect. They're very abstract. And again, here, I'm just going to fade it off into the sky. You don't need to have a point on it or anything. I'm just going to grab some more blue and let that fade. Okay. Any questions? Oops, this way. There we go. You guys are just working so hard, so quiet. Now, you can drop, if your branch is still wet, if you get done and it's still wet, you can go back and drop darker colors in or add some yellow. So if I wanted to get a little bit of a glistening, I'm gonna clean my yellow on my branch, like a highlight almost. And like over here, I've got a lot of yellow. So it's almost like the sun is over here. So I can create like maybe some yellow on my branches here, like a reflection. So I can go into my yellow and maybe add a little bit of that somewhere. I'll probably do it down here, like right along this edge. Yeah, that's pretty. Now I didn't wet it. I'm just kind of using the yellow right off the brush. This is that dry on dry technique. So I'm just dry brush, dropping some yellow in here.
Hello, sweetheart.
I got a little too much, so I'm going to dab some of it off. Then I can add some more brown to it. You want to put some darker colors right under the feet and kind of under where the bird is, because there would be a shadow cast from the bird sitting on the branch. So we're just going to kind of build up our colors as we work on the branch. It's a little bit, we're using more of a dry technique now, but we're kind of still softening any edges. You can add some black if you want under the bird, just to give it a little shadow. So if I got some brown here, I can drop some black in it around the feet. It'll start to give it depth. I don't want it everywhere, just kind of in certain spots. I'm gonna put some nice dark blue down here. I like to get dark colors wherever the branches meet. They're going to be a little darker. because it's going to cast a shadow. So definitely like to get that in. And we're not working from a reference photo, so we're kind of making this up as we go. We're just kind of like thinking, okay, where would a shadow be? Okay, it would be in here where these two parts meet. So you can kind of start to create depth that way. As you're building up your layers, we're going to get to a drier and drier brush, and we're going to start to create that kind of texture. So we're going to use the brush. We're going to use that dry technique we did before and add some texture to make it look like bark. So less water. You're going to want your paint, your brush dry and your paint on there, and you're going to kind of create a texture to it. Oops. Got a little too much blue here. I need to add some. So if you want like a brown and you want it thicker, you're going to go into your reds and blues without a lot of water and mix that on your palette. It looks different. So I'll show you. It's got a different consistency. It's almost like an acrylic. So it's much, much thicker. And then I can grab some yellow. I don't have much water in here. I need red. So my brush is pretty dry, my palette's pretty dry, and I'm kind of working with just the paint. So I can kind of go in and add this like a texture, a little bit more of a texture. It still has too much water. I don't have the right brush. I want to get this dry. So it's almost like you want to get like the bristles separated. Yeah, I can't seem to get it with these brushes. Try this. Like you want to get a separation in the brushes to get it to kind of have this textured, dry feel to it. That's a little bit better. If you can't get it, don't worry about it. Just put some colors on your branch and let them play with each other and work together. Don't fret. So I've got some paint on the outside. I'm just doing a little bit of a scrub while it's wet and dabbing it to get it lifted off of my background. Once it dries, it will kind of disappear. I spilled some on there. So with the branches, I usually just keep building the layers till I get to a darker point, to my darkest layer. You can kind of squiggle your brush around. Doesn't have to be in a perfect line. Make some shoots coming off. Mix some colors in. It starts to look like a branch, starts to get some depth to it. It's always there. It's always backwards. I can never figure out which way to move my painting. I'm going to add some black in here. Put some in here. I'm going to put some down here. All right, how did everybody do? How's it going?
I need to practice the branches more, but I'm having fun.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's all it is. It's practice. It's doing it again and again and again.
I can call my bird a vulture, or
Oh, perfect. I love vultures. We have them in our backyard. I think they're one of the most interesting birds.
that's what mine looks like.
I like being able to go back and just keep adding layers, especially as it dries, being able to.
Yep. Yeah.
Dark
So
color.
it's, so like, honestly, I mean, we have 2 hours. That's what we have
Yeah.
to do. But honestly, like if this were me, I'd probably set it aside tonight. If it were a painting I was going to keep, like if you guys wanted, you could go back tomorrow and you can definitely work on the, oh, it's beautiful. I love it. Yeah, you can definitely work on the branch, bring it really, like really darken those layers and bring it to life. That's one of the things I really like about watercolor. Well, any medium really, is just the layering, the patience you put into it and how deep you can get it.
I also need, I think, work on so my mixed colors aren't as watery, because that's what I found. A lot of them are a little too watery, so they're
Yeah, it's completely normal, Janelle. Everybody, even me, I still paint very light. I'm a light painter, and I do layers. I start off real light, and I build, because I still have that a little bit of fear of the color, like putting it on so dark right away.
right.
So completely normal. How about everybody else? How'd you guys do? Let me see your paintings. Good or bad? I want to see them. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Gorgeous.
Thank you.
Let me see your vulture, Sue. I want to see your vulture.
I am going to paint a mouse.
Oh, it's so cute.
I love it.
It looks great. It does not look like a vulture at all. Poor birdie. Be nice.
When I paint the mouse in his beak, it's going to be a vulture.
It looks great. It doesn't look like a vulture at all. How'd yours come out, Sue?
I'll try to hold it up. It's kind of dark in this area of my
That's
room,
okay. Oh, it's gorgeous.
Oh,
Look at
that's
that.
cool.
It's so soft. You're a light painter too then, right?
well, I'm a new painter, so I don't
Yes.
know.
Yeah. It's the same thing. But you know what? That's what makes them so beautiful, is the softness. Like you go in and it's just so soft, and then you can bring up these really deep, beautiful colors on top of it.
I'm just happy I painted my first thing and I'm not embarrassed. It's actually
You guys all did fantastic, honestly. Like I said, I really challenge beginners, because to kind of go right into the wet is not easy. So the fact that you guys even kept up is great. Joe, let's see yours. I didn't see yours. Oh, he's awesome. Look at you, put a full tree in, man.
Yeah.
Gee, he's a go-getter. It looks really
I don't
good.
think I can see all of them.
You can't? Well,
No,
you
I
know
can
what?
only see 4 people. I don't know why.
Oh,
Oh,
Uh,
there's
try
an
going
arrow.
to, try
Oh,
going to
there.
gallery view.
Oh, now I see everybody. All this time I didn't do it that way.
Guys, if you wouldn't mind, take a picture and when you're done, you can even work on them more tomorrow if you want. Take a picture and send them to me. I'm going to do a little collage in the Facebook group just so everyone can see what you guys did because you did awesome. And then they'll all be jealous that I had 27 people
Wow.
tonight. So they'll all be jealous that they didn't get to paint their bird. But no, it's just fun. I like to show everybody what you guys did. So make sure you sign them. That's the last thing you want to do after every painting. Sign your painting. So be proud that you did this. I don't sign with watercolor. I usually grab a colored pencil, typically black, and I just sign somewhere at the bottom, wherever you want, however you want to do your signature, but make sure you sign it and own it and be proud of it. So you guys did awesome. So yeah, when you get done, just send me a photo, email it to me, and I'll put them all together. I'll do a layout. All right. Any questions before we jump off? We're good?
Thank you so much.
What's that, Kristen?
I said thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. no
Yes,
problem.
thank you.
Yeah, I love doing this. So I'm probably going to do them once a month. I think we're going to do next month. I think we're going to do this one. We're going to do the little bunny.
Uh,
So, yeah. So some of them I sell in my kit, so we won't do those. But the ones that I kind of do as extras, we'll do for free. So this is the Easter bunny. So we'll probably do this guy next week or next month. I'm also thinking about bringing on another painter who does florals and lettering. So she might be doing a couple free classes too. So yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. All right, I will let you guys go. If you have,
thank you.
yeah, if you have questions in the meantime, don't be afraid. Bye, Joe. Don't be afraid to email me or you guys all know how to get a hold of me. So just ask. I can help you out. Email me for photos when you're done. And I did record it. So I'll be putting it. I don't know if you're familiar with the Brush Babies Facebook group I have, but I will be posting the video up in that group. And it will be available so you guys can watch it again and keep painting. You can trace the bird again and do another one. So it'll always be there.
Thank you.
Oh, I recorded it.
Nikki, thank you so very much. This was
Hope to see you guys next month and drop in and say hi to me once in a while.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you later. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
good night.